another episode, and I'm super excited about this episode. So here's the thing. This is our 17th episode since we started doing all of this, and we've had a lot of fun. Right? I mean, you and I have had some conversations by ourselves. We have invited other conversationalists into the fold.
Sure.
Did it communicate? I think it communicated. I think it'll work. And they've been really great guests and some great conversations we've talked to teachers and we've talked to paras and we've talked to parents. But today we get the coolest one. It's my mom. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have my mother with us today because my mom has a really neat and unique perspective when it comes to things like conversations about IEPs and special needs, because she has served children and families in so many ways over the years and not only has she worked with students that have special needs, not only does she have friends that have kids that have special needs, but she's also Xander's grandma, or Grammy. Make sure I say it right. And so she has, again, an awful lot to bring to this conversation. And so I think we should just go ahead and get started.
All right.
But before we do, you see what I did right there? It was like a fake out. I just want to say one quick thing, and then we're going to keep rolling with this, is that Laura and I have been having some conversations and discussions about setting up some special events for people who would want to be members, and we'll explain that more later on. But what I can say is be looking out for some really cool stuff. Like, we've got some ideas. Now, we're not taking anybody to like Bermuda or anything like that, but yes, we have some other ideas. So now I'm going to stop running my mouth and I'm going to hand over the microphone to like my other favorite lady in the whole world, my wife. And go ahead, Laura, introduce my mom.
Introduce your mom. How am I supposed to introduce your mom? So, so as you said, we have your mom. This is Robin Curtis, and Robin's had, like you said, just a vast amount of experience in working with the kids with special needs, or families who have children with special needs, and other than being the best mother-in-law, she's just she's just has a wealth of information that she probably doesn't even know she has. So I think we'll just jump right in. And so, Robin, we talked about your titles that you've had, and it makes me think of the Hat book. I know that's one of your and Jared's favorite books, The Hat. So why don't you tell us some of the hats that you have worn as when dealing with kids and others with special needs?
Well, first I want to say thank you for asking me to do this, and I feel very honored and kind of scared, but I will just jump right in and do my best. Because I'm old, I've done quite a few things. I think probably going back to when Jared and Jonathan and Jessica were in school, they went to a private school. And so to help pay the tuition, I worked in a classroom as a classroom monitor. And then I was the children's ministry director at the church, which through that I worked with a lot of families. And then I was a co-founder of a preschool. A friend of mine, God gave her the vision to start a preschool and asked me to come along for the ride. So I was involved in that. I worked in the Camden County school system for approximately 4 years. I worked in the SPED department for about 3.5 years, I think, maybe 4, and then a half a year in a gen ed kindergarten class.
And she was one of the best sped parents that I've had. That's for sure.
Yeah, and
I mean,
Well,
we've got five fantastic sped pairs. I'm not taking away from anything then, but you know, you're fantastic to work with. Until I ran her off and made her retire.
um, no, I was that retirement age, but you were my favorite teacher to work with.
Aw.
You were amazing.
I'm glad that you didn't work with me, Mom, because if so, that would have really hurt.
Oh well.
Oh, well. She says, oh, well.
Oh well.
So,
But I did work with you.
oh, okay. So you did work with me and still picked Laura as your favorite.
I didn't work with you.
Okay.
I saw you in the lunchroom,
Yes, that's true. That
and I was
you did.
very impressed.
Oh, well, thank you. My mom says I'm great at lunch duty.
No, both of you are. I'm so proud of both of you. I see how you work together, and y'all are amazing. I'm so proud of you. You both are very gifted, and you really love those kids, and it is so evident.
Oh, thank you.
And we didn't have to pay her to say that.
No, and I mean it with all my heart.
So, Mom, I know we've had conversations over the years about Xander, and he's kind of become the almost like the, I'm going to say mascot, but I feel bad saying that, of this whole conversation because, outside of education and working in the school system, he's a huge part of our understanding on how children with special needs operate and things to look for and so on and so forth. But I remember a time specifically before Xander was ever even diagnosed. And I remember you coming to me and saying, Jared, I really think there's some concern here, some help that he may need, and really was instrumental in that initial push to get Xander help. Can you talk to us a little bit about that time and what you remember seeing? And
Sure. That was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had, and it especially when I saw how it affected you, to hear that I felt like there was a need in your child's life. But I think he was in preschool when I started. He wasn't, I guess he was about 3 when I just started noticing things like he wasn't having eye contact. He was super extremely hyper, very hyper. Of course, he wouldn't eat. I can remember talking to Dad about that and crying, saying, how is he going to survive? He was, licking the spices off of Doritos and drinking Pediasure,
that was it.
And I was just so concerned. I can remember his birthday. I'm not sure what year it was, but I can remember, I'm thinking it must have been his first birthday, because we put the birthday cake on his tray, and all the kids, how usually, not all the time, but most kids will just stick their hands in it and just make a mess. Well, Xander was different even then. It might not have been his first birthday, but I can remember he didn't want anything to do it. He was almost like repulsed by the thought of putting his hands in that, and
I forgot about that.
yeah, and I thought about that later, because that was early in his life, but there was just things, it just didn't that seemed like there was something wrong.
Well, and I know that those aren't easy conversations to have. So and I know this is kind of a big one, but if there's a parent, a grandparent, or somebody that is listening to this and they recognize some things in a child, a grandchild, a friend's child, a family member, Do you have any advice on how to approach that conversation with the parent?
Well, I can only share how I approached you, and you had come over, and I asked you to please sit down, and I was upset. I mean, it wasn't easy, and I just said to you, you know, I'm not a doctor. I don't, but as a grandparent, I have some concerns, and I just want to share them with you. And it's so hard, but like you said, that conversation did start the wheels rolling. I mean, it's hard for any parent, and I know in working with children, I know that there's been times when teachers have expressed concerns about a child, and the parent just doesn't want to hear that. It's so hard. They don't want to think that there might be something wrong, that their child has a challenge. But I think coming from a grandparent or someone in the family that sees it and loves that child and expresses that concern, I think that can really help.
I agree 100%. And I know it's nobody wants to hear that there's certain things that their child will not experience in life, right? Some things that come with that. But I'm eternally grateful for you and for Dad and the support of our family. This would have been a much harder trek, trying to do it alone, and for that I can't even come close to thanking you enough.
Oh, well, it is our pleasure. We love Xander. You know that.
Oh, absolutely.
I know he loves going to Grammy and Paws, and that's for sure.
Well, now it's more Paws, I think. The kids like me when they're younger, but when they get older, they're Paws.
They're Paws for a little bit. Then they'll be back to Grammy. But watching the journey that he's been on, and you guys have certainly been a huge part of that, and a huge support for us and for Xander. And so, can you talk a little bit about like what insights you've gained by watching the challenges and the triumphs that as a family we've all faced with Xander?
Oh my, Xander is a success story. I hope that doesn't sound bad. It is amazing how far Xander has come. He was a little kid who wouldn't eat. There was hardly, I mean, he was very hard to control. And the thing is once he got his diagnosis, it's like he had us, I'll say us, meaning me and Grandpa, wrapped around his little finger, because we thought, oh, poor Xander, he has autism. He doesn't know what he's doing, Oh, he knew he had us wrapped around his finger.
He doesn't understand. He doesn't know any better.
It was something. I mean, Jared has shared how he would bring him on family trips and would have to go home because Xander was so hard to keep near us, And so until we went on a camping trip, I think it was the first camping trip that we went on when Laura joined our family. Would you like me to share that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, well, Xander had us wrapped around his little finger. We had gone camping and we were all getting ready to leave the camper, and Xander was told to put his shoes on, and Xander didn't want to put his shoes on. And he was refusing. And finally, Laura just very politely and nicely said, "Will everyone please leave the camper and just leave Xander by ourselves?" And so we did, and we sat outside on the picnic table for, I would say, what, about 20 minutes, Laura?
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe 30. But we would hear shoes hitting up against the door, and, and I could tell by Laura's voice, she had her back up against the door, so Xander couldn't get out. And all of a sudden, the door opened and Xander had his shoes on and he walked out. And that's when Paul and I knew this kid knows. This kid knows what And it's been amazing through the two of you raising Xander, what he is today. He went from a child that was so hard to control to now we can take him to youth group. And he gets out of the car. He walks into the youth group. He knows to get his headphones. He enjoys his friends. It's his people,
Mhm.
And it's just amazing. He didn't eat. He didn't eat until he was 5 years old. Now,
8.
when he comes to my house, I have to make sure I have Dr. Pepper, Doritos, meatball subs,
Mhm.
tacos, and he does his own laundry. He's the only one of my grandkids that will put dishes in the dishwasher. Um, this kid is amazing, and I know it's because God has gifted y'all to work with him, and it's amazing what this young man is.
I've definitely had a lot of help along the way, and talking about him being all over the place. We were just telling the story the other day about how he had us snowed at first too, because we didn't think that Xander could sit down and attend to any tasks until we went to an award ceremony, and the little booger sat there for 30 minutes on crisscross applesauce in third grade, listening to an award ceremony. And so, we've talked about needing that tribe. So we had the teachers. Okay, what are you doing? Same with getting him to eat. Working with the teachers. What are you feeding him at school so we can feed him at home? And
Mhm.
that first Christmas break. No, we got to keep this going. And John and Michelle. That Michelle just took him on, and when he was in elementary school to
Yep.
be able to be part of the church services, and that's gone on to, like you said, to now to youth group. Now we just drop him off and he goes. Where before we had to assign a teenager that was quick enough to chase him around the church. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely been a bunch of
It takes
us.
a village, doesn't it?
It does, that's for sure.
Well, I'm so grateful that y'all have had that village.
So we were just having the conversation the other day of, oh man, the story just left my head.
Uh-oh.
What was I about to say? It was a good story too. Oh well, if it comes back to me, I'll bring it back up.
Okay.
So let's see. We got some other questions here. Oh, this one right here.
The second part.
Oh, okay. So with your time in the school system and of course working with family members and so on, what are some things that you think schools could possibly do better to support students and families? And now there's no, don't worry, you're not going to make anybody mad because we're not attacking anyone. But what ideas? What are some things that you think might would be at the very least a good thing to consider when working with families of children with special needs?
I think what I see some breakdowns sometime is communication. Communication between the parent, the teacher to the parent to the teacher, even the teacher to the counselor. I think it is so important to have good communication on what's going on. I don't think you can communicate too much on that. I think what I've witnessed, and this is sad to say, but a lot of times when a child, especially before a diagnosis, if a child comes in with special needs, but they haven't gotten a diagnosis, they just are considered having behavioral problems. And I've witnessed kids almost being labeled, and that's so sad. At one time I had an educator asked me if I would come in and observe a child, and it didn't take me too long to see that this child had been labeled. I could tell by the way the children were talking to this kid. It's like they were just repeating what they heard their parents say, to this kid. And I told the educator, I said, I really believe that this little guy's been labeled. And I'm afraid that happens a lot. And it helps so much when there is a diagnosis, because it's like people have more patience with kids when there's a diagnosis. Later on, in watching this child, that's another thing. And I know it's hard, especially nowadays, because the classrooms are so large, but to really watch the kids and learn the kids, because this same little kid, I was in a classroom with him like 2 years later, and I learned that this little kid, he just wanted to be respected. If someone would take a toy from him, he would haul off and hit him. But if I would have the other child say, "Why don't you go ask him if you can play with that toy?" That little kid would just hand the toy over. It's just he wanted to be respected. He didn't want people, taking things from him and everything. And I think if the teachers and even the parents can really watch the kids and learn how to help them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, it really is counterintuitive. What you're talking about is counterintuitive to us as parents and as adults. Where a lot of times we want kids to just do what we tell them to do, instead
Right.
of let's learn the child, let's learn their thought process and their perspective.
And
Right.
sometimes that's hard, because you almost feel like, well, if they don't do what I'm saying, I'm losing control. And that's not it at all. You need to learn that child, because they each learn differently, and things look different to different kids.
Absolutely, because all of their interactions, all of their experiences shape their perspective on how they view the world around them, and we don't know all of those experiences and what has happened in their lives.
Well, like you said, that Jared, that we live in, our own head. We only know what we know. We have only experienced what we've experienced. And so we don't know what they're necessarily going through. I mean, we can try to sympathize, we can try to empathize, but it's different. And everybody has their own perspective based on what they've been through. And some of these little guys and gals have been through so much that as children, I don't know if any of us would have ever been able to go through it. That they're
Mhm.
dealing with so much these days.
And communicating with the parent too, the teacher communicating with the teacher, communicating with the parent communicating with the teacher. You're learning this child together. You're helping, to shape this child in the way he should go, or she.
Right, because we know that in conversations we've had with parents, sometimes we'll say so and so, so we celebrate some victories. Oh, so they're doing this, and what they'll sit down in the chair for you. Well, absolutely, but then there's also times that we say, well, we're seeing this, and they're like, oh, well, we don't see this at home, and so having these conversations, we can say, so what have you tried? Or we can say, well, we tried this, and so that definitely is key, is that constant communication and
Yes.
honest, because we don't be honest about it. We don't judge. We just want to
Right.
help your
Right.
kid.
Right.
All right, Mom, I've got one more question,
Okay.
and this is a big one.
Oh no.
No, not really. It is a big one, but it's one that I know you will not have any issues answering whatsoever. So anybody that knows me even half decently knows that my dad is a pastor and has been a local pastor here for, golly, it's been 40 years. Does that sound right?
Close to it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's, he's been doing the pastor thing and the preacher thing, and you've been by his side. And so what I do know is this. One of the really great things, and I think also one of the scary things about being the child of a preacher, is that your children can rat you out. If you are not the real deal, they can burn you down. What I can say is that my parents are the real deal.
Thank you, Darren.
What you hear preached and shared on Sunday, they live that life. It's real to them. So, Mom, tell me, how would you describe to anyone listening the impact that God has had on your perspective when it comes to working with children and families?
Oh my, children are so special to him, so special to him. And, well, Jared, you said that wasn't going to be a hard question. I think, just knowing Christ and what he's done for me, the grace and the mercy he has shown me personally, that has helped me to show grace and mercy to adults, but also to these little kids who they're growing and they're being molded and shaped, and they are so special to God. I just want to love them. I want to show them unconditional love, just like God has shown me. And there's nothing greater than watching, because being in the preschool, I have seen children grow up and they have children now themselves, which is really wild. And it's so awesome to see that what God has allowed me to pour into children's lives, they have grown and they're pouring the love of Christ and godly principles into their children's lives. And I don't think there's any greater reward than that.
I love you, Mom.
I love you. But I was afraid I was going to start crying there. But
don't worry, we already have a couple of times on this side of the table, so.
Yeah. But it's such a privilege to be able to work with kids. And I really didn't plan on it. I really didn't plan on working with children, and that's been my heart and really my call through my whole life. Even now, I'm still working with children and working with families who have special needs children. And that's just a call that God's put in my heart and my life. And he's equipped me. He's equipped my heart for that. And I love watching you and Laura just pour your hearts into kids and their families. Y'all have a ministry.
I know Jared's often told people that you are a teacher who never had their own classroom per se, and that it's definitely true. To watch you with the kids is really, you're a natural, and it just comes, you come by it and you know what they need, and it's really cool.
Thanks.
All right, Mom. Well, I think we're going to wrap this up.
Well, y'all were pretty nice. Thank you.
We try our best.
I was so scared.
Well, we're glad you agreed to it.
Well, thank you. And again, I'm honored that you would even ask me. When you first asked me, it was like, why? What do I have to offer?
Well, now everybody knows.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right, Mom. We'll talk to you later.
Y'all get some rest.
Yes, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye.